everyone. Welcome to another edition of Hewitt Home. We have a very special guest today, all the way in Ontario. I want to welcome Doina Oncel. She is an innovator, financial planner, a trailblazer, a mother, and as she continues her story, she'll tell us all the other titles that she has. But first of all, Doina, it is so nice to meet you. Thank you so much. I know that we did a little pre-meet and you shared some of your story, and I just feel that it is inspiring, but it is so true to so many women that will be coming to Canada, are here in Canada now, and I think you will give them some hope today. So welcome to Hewitt Home, and let's start with your amazing story on how you came to Canada. Doina.
Well, first, let me start by saying thank you for having me. I'm honored. I've heard such great things, and I'm so happy to be here. I'm truly excited. So, thank you for the opportunity. And for me, how I came to Canada? Well, I came to Canada. I'm from Romania. I grew up in Romania during the communism regime. I still need to learn English. Almost 30 years later, so it's okay. You know what they say is like, at least I know two languages, so I'm okay. But yes, I came to Canada almost 30 years ago. In June of next year is going to be 30 years that I came here. And I grew up in Romania during communism regime. And only about 3 years after the revolution, I was able to come to Canada. And I settled in Vancouver first, and then I moved to Ontario. Yeah,
Okay, so
it's
your first impressions of Canada and like how did you get your start?
well, when I came here, I've had my father that was here. Um, just to make a long story short, he was in Canada 10 years before my sister and I got here. And basically, he's the one that brought us to Canada. And when we came here, can I say culture shock? There was a lot of culture shock. First of all, I didn't speak any English. I remember I only had about 2 weeks in Canada, and all I learned was hello, how are you? My name is Doina, and goodbye. So people would talk to me, and I'd be nodding. They could say whatever, and I'd be like, nodding and smiling. And then when I had enough, I say goodbye. And it was a little bit, yeah, it was culture shock. The food tasted different. The even the environment was different. There's a lot of different things. There's a lot of new things. I feel like I was also, as a baby, when you learn to walk and you learn to talk, and kind of, I felt the same way, having to learn pretty much everything from scratch. So it was a lot of exciting parts, but also a lot of challenges. So, which I'm sure a lot of immigrants that come to Canada understand. When you don't speak the language, when you don't have a network, when the food tastes different, when you want to connect with people and it's hard to meet the people like back home. There's a lot of those differences coming here. When you don't understand how the whole society works here, it is challenging. It's very, very challenging, I must say. And I was young. I was only 19
My
when I was,
goodness.
so it was
And
very, very tough.
when you look back at it now, Doina, was there moments, I guess my question would be, who helped you navigate through all this? Like important people in your life then that helped you get on with your life?
Can I say there were some angels out there that were, really, well, let me just share this. So I maybe someone will have similar story as mine. So I'm going to share this. 2.5 years when I arrived to Canada. After I arrived to Canada, I had to run. My father brought us here, but then he was abusive, so I had to run away from home with my younger sister. So we lived in a shelter, and it was really tough because again, didn't understand how this whole thing works, and having to depend on the system that you don't understand how it works. It was really, really tough, right? And I'm very happy to say that I've had some amazing people that were working in the social service sector to support me. But it was still at the same time, I knew for me that I needed to find my way because I always said to myself, I didn't come to Canada for this. I came to Canada for a better life.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to figure out what that is, right? So, and I've also had my grandmother's words in mind as a child. You know, she used to say to me, Doina, you were born to be somebody. So every time I would just stumble upon a wall, I'll be like, I was born to be somebody. This doesn't really feel like it. So I had to figure out a way to, to find my way, to becoming somebody, right? And so that was very important to me, and I feel like it was my motivation to move forward. And but yes, I've had social services to help me. I was on welfare at that time too, and I've had a social worker. She helped me to uh, you know to connect me with resources. But it was, I think, what was really important, and I hope that other people that are in my situation as I was there is ask a lot of questions. Figure out what you want and ask a lot of questions. For me, I was like, how do I find a place to live? What does it take? How do I find a job? Like, what does it take? And I figured out there was a program at the welfare office that would incentivize people to employ people like me. And I was sold that. I says, if you're gonna hire me, you're gonna get this money, you know what I mean, to help you for training, and you don't need to worry. I worked very hard and I got hired. And then when I get to find a place to stay, I use that to say I have a job, and now I can actually, can I move in? So that was what helped me. That was at that time. And then when I moved from Vancouver, I lived in Vancouver at first, and I moved from Vancouver to Toronto. Culture shock again. About 8 years after I came to Canada, I had to start all over again, right? Because in Vancouver, again, there was no jobs. It was really, really hard to make it, through. And so I moved to Toronto. And then when I moved here, I had my first child. And then I was in an abusive relationship. Abusive as is like was controlling, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I'm new to this city. I'm new to this country, basically. Still new with not having any network in Ontario, in Toronto. And this person was, not supporting me, even though we were having a child together, right? And I had to leave again. I did have the support at this time. I had the support of my sister. I stayed with my mom. I was helping with the child. I had the job, but I had to navigate my way into starting all over. And then after that, I found another relationship like 4 years later, and then I had another child. And then that's when I experienced domestic violence. And I mean, not just verbal and emotional and psychological abuse, it was physical. And that's when I had to take my children and run away and live in a shelter with them for 3 months. And that was eye opening,
Mm-hmm.
really eye opening.
Mm-hmm.
But also, it was to be honest, I really, looking back at my situation, I feel like all of these things happened to build me into who I am, and to also push me really hard to move forward, right? And I guess having kids in my situation was very helpful, for lack of a better word. It was helpful because when I was in the shelter, I remember my oldest daughter, she was 7 at the time. My youngest daughter was not even 1 year old. And we were sitting at dinner table, we're eating dinner. And then she said to me, my oldest daughter said to me, she was happy because she got to play with some kids there, and she didn't even realize we were in a shelter. She thought it was like, this is so fun. I have kids around, I can play with. So, but then she said to me, Mom, um, she looked at me, and I kind of felt she was going to say something, moving. And she said, when I grow up, I want to be just like you. You're such a great mom. Oh my God. It was my skin crawling
Yes.
because, I'm thinking, what have I done with my life? I live in a shelter. I'm homeless. I have no money. I have no, you know, I don't have much, right? So if I want my kids to do better, I need to do better myself. It was also a reminder to me that I came to Canada for a better life.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to really like work very, very hard and be very intentional about what do I want from life and what do I want for my children
Mm-hmm.
so that I can figure out how to make it happen. And to answer your question as to who was there for me, I honestly, and I'm sure that people that are in the system understand this. When you are in the system, the programs and resources that are there are designed to keep you in the system.
Mm-hmm.
So if anyone is in the system and they feel like they can't get out, understand the system was designed to make you feel that way. It's not you. You're able to do anything. All that you have to do is find the right people to support you. Figure out what you want to do and then find the people to help you because there are people out there to help you, right? But it is possible sometimes because I remember when I was on welfare and I say I wanted to go to college and they'll say, well, if you go to college, we'll cut you off for welfare. And and I was like, what am I going to do? Instead of saying, look, those are resources. You should go to college. You should get an education. You should become a citizen that contributes to this society. You should be doing all this. You shouldn't be here. This should be temporary. Instead, they were used, if you go, we'll cut you off.
And
And, but I
that's
was
yeah,
happy.
it's so wrong. And your story is it resonates so much with the young, families that are coming to Canada
Yes.
today, tomorrow, and the day after that, that will be in the same shoes as you, Doina.
Yes.
And you're so right that the system
Mm-hmm.
is built to keep you in, or to keep those that are in the system in the system. And
Yes.
and then now, if your story progresses, I have to also say that you also are a founder and CEO of your own company.
Yes.
Yes, so tell us more about
Well, that's
Hervolution.
kind of how it started. So for me, I've always knew I wanted, well, those are the things that I wanted to be when I grew up. I knew I was going to be an entrepreneur. I was 9 years old. I didn't see anyone around me that was the boss, so to speak. And so I remember I had uh, an imaginary staff. I had an imaginary boardroom and I had imaginary meetings and I had PowerPoint presentations. I've never seen that in my life, but in my mind, that's what's happening. And I was talking about projections. I was talking about, setting goals and meeting them. And I was only 9 years old. And I was doing that on my own by myself, like just trying to, people probably thought I was like, what's wrong with this person? But that's how I was playing, right? So that was, and I also knew I wanted to be maybe a lawyer
Mm-hmm.
to work for women's rights because back home in Romania, women didn't have rights, and I wanted to change that somehow. I wanted to be a lawyer or a teacher,
Mm-hmm.
and I thought if I could teach, you know, I feel like education is very important for a lot of people. It doesn't necessarily have to be formal education, but education is important, right? And so I want to be a teacher, but that would have never really happened, for me back home. But then um, when ended up going to college, I studied social work with a feminist perspective. I think the only course in Canada that is here in Toronto at George Brown College that is the Assaulted Women's and Children's Council Advocate Program. And that teaches you social work with a feminist perspective. You study women's and children's rights around the globe. And you learn about the systemic issues that are happening and what keeps women where they are and children where they are. And so I knew that I wanted to do something with that because I've been very, very passionate about, women's rights, you know. Just to go back a little bit on my story, funny, but not really that funny. But now when I look back at it, this is kind of how you see how the universe kind of you can see the connect how you connect the dots, right? How the universe was having a plan for me, really. So I finished my program And then 6 months later, I ended up being my first case study. I had experienced domestic violence. I had to go in the system. I had to go and navigate my way. And then I figured, I said, you know, someone that has studied this, and I'm supposed to be there to help women like me. And it had been very, very tough. Imagine if a woman that doesn't speak English, it would be in
Mm-hmm.
my situation. Imagine a woman that is new to this country and doesn't know how the system works, how hard it might be for her. Imagine a woman that is always like in a silo in her own community. Sometimes we want to be a community with people that the country we come from. Not always a good thing because they know what they know. They don't necessarily know how the system works, and they keep you right. So it's like imagine to be that woman. It's must be so hard, and that's why I said I really wanted to do something to help women. And then I've learned about the women in STEM and how um, funny enough, I've had a lot of companies, right? Like I've had a renovation company, uh, and I did really well, but it was with my ex, and then I didn't want to do it much because I didn't know much about renovation. I just learned about business, and then I had my own digital marketing company, and then that's where I learned about the lack of women in STEM in Canada. I really thought that that would be something that only happens in Romania. I didn't realize that's something that happens in Canada. And I thought, wow, look at the common issues, for
Mm-hmm.
women around the world. And so I thought, as we all get a good idea and we say, somebody should be doing something, somebody should be doing, and being someone that had been in the system, right? And I've seen how opportunities like that don't come to me. But also working with people in the system, I didn't have access to opportunities to
Mm-hmm.
present to anyone that has been my client. I work with refugee women, I work with youth at risk and conflict with the law. I didn't have these resources. And I thought, would it be nice if somebody would open an organization to support women in STEM that are low income, that come with various barriers? Until my mentor said to me, somebody should be you because you you are a woman that has experienced a lot of barriers. And my thing was like, but I'm not really in STEM. And then he's like, well, you're kind of doing digital marketing, so you kind of are in technology. You might not have the formal education, but it doesn't mean that you don't know. And if anyone in STEM would have done it, they could have done it by now. But some people that are in STEM, they don't understand the systemic issues, and
Mm-hmm.
that's why you should do it. And that's how I created my organization, Revolution, to support young women. Now we go more with girls and gender nonconforming youth that come with multiple barriers to get them to enter STEM. Create programs for them, partner with companies, to support them in a way where they get inspired, but also it gives them the opportunity to figure out, is this something that I really want to do,
Oh,
you know,
yeah,
moving
that's so
forward.
important. And that must be so rewarding for you now.
Yes,
I can see the
yes,
light in your face, and it's a long story, but the story is long on how you got there. But that organization is so, so important, especially today. And now, if you
yes,
want to kind of shift the conversation now, we know that you give back, we know that you're supporting the community, but you also got an education in an
yes,
area where it is not very well represented by women. So, once again,
yes,
you're working trying to break the glass ceiling in the world of finance. So, you are a
yes.
financial advisor. First question to you, and I know the answer, but how important is it, Doina, for women to understand finances, to know the ins and outs, about whether to get an advisor versus a financial planner, all those things?
So let me start by saying, as a woman, and knowing when you are financially, it's very important. Whether you're married or you're single, doesn't matter. Because again, for me, going back to my grandmother's word, I was born to be somebody, but I think that what she was trying to say, I was born to do something in this world. And everything I do has to have some sort of purpose. And my purpose here is because I have worked with women, and I have seen and have been one myself where I was low income. And if I would have had financial education, if I would have had a, understanding how money works, I would have never been in the shelter. I could have been able to go and have something better for me and my children, right? I would have been able to not depend on food banks, right? I wouldn't be able to have those resources. So again, financial literacy is, I think it's one of the most important education that any woman should have, must have. Let's just put it that way, must have, right? I've also run a group of women before with business women, and I noticed that women get very shy when it comes to talking about money. And I've also noticed that women, when they have a business, they don't want to ask. They kind of, when it comes to money, like, I don't know, it's very uncomfortable. Let's be comfortable with not being uncomfortable asking about money, right? Because money are very important. So understanding, where you stand financially is very important. It doesn't matter that you're married. It doesn't matter that you're single, right? So yes, I understand. And for myself, right, for me, what really helped me is having a financial advisor, having somebody that helped me. It was independent from the bank, independent from any financial institution. Was somebody that was interested in me and where I am at that moment. I'm in debt. How do I get out of debt? How do I set myself financially to have that Canadian dream that we all come here for, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, it's very important to have a financial advisor. One, because I think a financial advisor not only holds you accountable, but also set you straight and shows you how to get there faster versus doing it on your own. I didn't know myself. Like before I became a financial advisor, I registered for every workshop I could get before I officially became a financial advisor. I want to know, because when I was in a situation when I was $60,000 in debt 10 years ago, I was $60,000 in debt. I submitted a consumer proposal, and now 10 years later, I was able to buy my first home and set my kids financially for life. And then myself, I'm good. It's not about the money, amount of money that you make. It's about what you do with the money, right? And that was so eye-opening. That, the aha moment. I was like, wow. To know that there's people out there that make $300,000 a year and they live paycheck to paycheck, and to know that there's people that make $60,000 a year and they put money into savings every month.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's about mindset. It's about having a plan. It's about having someone to show you what to do with the money, right? That's why it's important to have a financial advisor.
Okay, so now let's make everybody rich here. Doina, what are,
Yeah.
I guess, the top three picks, or maybe there's five, I don't know, but what are the most important things that we should be thinking about money-wise?
First and foremost, you have to um, be okay with knowing where your money go. Have a budget. And I don't mean just like have a budget as to what it is. Track your spending. Track your spending every month to know where you spend your money. Once you track your spending, you get to see, oh my God, I didn't realize I'm spending so much money on these things that I actually have a gym membership that I never use, or like I have a I have a Netflix account and I only watch Netflix once a day, like, or once a week. Like, what's the point? Or I have this thing that you realize there's certain things that you spend money on and you don't have to, because you are wasting those money. Because when you think about it, $20, if you invest that $20 and then you apply the rule of 72, which is that's kind of how money works. So if whatever interest that you get from an investment, you divide it by 72, and it tells you how long it takes you to multiply that money. So if you take $20 and you apply the rule of 72, you realize, like, if you have 12 months, $140 a year,
Mm-hmm.
and apply the rule of 72 by that, you could be rich in like 10, 20 years, right? You don't have to
Yes.
work. So it's a little bit of that could just tell you how much you can actually. So
Yeah.
that'll be that. So track your spending, create a budget, make sure that you are, don't spend things that you don't need to. And, what will be the third one? This is going to sound quite, what I do personally. I'm going to add two things. I'm going to add a bonus. One would be what I do personally. When I pay, everybody says pay yourself first, and some people don't understand what that actually means. You can create that however works for yourself. But what I do for me, some people say I take 10% and I put into savings. What I do for myself, when I pay my gas bill, when I pay my electricity bill, when I pay my car insurance, when I pay, like smaller bills, I put the same amount of money into my savings. So if my gas bill is $60, I pay myself $60. And then I put 5 to 10% from mortgage or any other big bills to put into my savings. So I can have a emergency savings fund. But also, and this comes from the heart, is that when you pay the bills, don't pay the bills thinking, oh, I can't believe I have to pay this. And it's just, you don't want to put the negative energy out there. You want to say, thank you for my job, whatever income you have that's come into your way, to say thank you for giving me enough money to be able to pay my bills. So pay your bills with grace, because as you know, the more you give gratitude for what you have, the more you get, right? So it's about the abundance mindset versus the, oh my goodness, like this bills are driving me nuts, are driving me crazy. We have to stay away from that because we don't want to attract bad energy, right?
No, only positive, good energy.
Only positive
and
energy.
You've totally done this for this whole conversation. Oh, Doina, I mean, we could go on and talk, but just to end it off there on such a positive note, because we all know how life can stress us out. And
Yes.
that simple statement that you just made, pay your bills with grace, may sound silly, but it does mean so much to one's own mental health. Thank you so much for sharing your story. It's been wonderful meeting you. You are a champion for all of the young women and women all around the world. I hope they take some little nugget from your story and apply it to their lives. And I know that it will certainly make a difference. And as we head into the holiday season, happy holidays to you and your family. Have a wonderful,
Same
wonderful
to you
holiday.
and everybody that's watching or listening to this. Happy holidays and stay graceful.
Yes.
Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you. Well, and thank you all for joining us here on Hue at Home. And I just want to end off and say a little thank you to Must Have Pockets owner Leanne Ryan. She is now my official clothing sponsor, and she has some wonderful stuff. So you can check her out online, musthavepockets.ca. We'll see you next time on Hue at Home.